What if substances are not helping you cope, but now have become the thing that are actually causing you to even need to? I remember the first time I had the realization that substances were not curing my anxiety. And in fact, I was having even more stress and anxiety over the fact that I was continuing to do something that I knew deep down I was no longer aligned with. I thought that sobriety was going to stress me out. And in fact, something else already was. So, in today's episode, we're talking all about that radical moment when you realize that the very thing you were using to cope has now become the reason that you even need to in the first place. Hey there, welcome to another episode. If I don't know you, my name is Jennifer Sack, and I help sober, curious people who are feeling exhausted and split into end the mental negotiation and quiet the fear so they can step into their sober lifestyle with confidence, clarity, and courage. I do want to say that I am not a medical professional, I am not a therapist. If you need actual medical help for addiction, if you need a professional on that level, please seek that support out. This is for educational and supportive purposes only based on my own experience. We're going to talk more today about that radical moment when you realize that being misaligned and continuing to do something using the substances that you did to cope with your daily stressors, with your anxiety, with all of the tumultuous moments of life. Now you're stressed out because you're continuing to do something that is so misaligned. So it's kind of like the dog chasing its own tail conundrum, and we're going to just dive into that a little deeper today. So I remember having two different kind of phases of this. There was that like quiet knowing, like nudging, whispering in the ear phase where something was like, "Hey, this doesn't feel right," or maybe we don't want to do this anymore. Could it be? And I would kind of shove that down and keep doing the same things I was doing. And then there was the full body instruction phase where it was like, you are done with this. What are you doing? The kind of reprimand that made me kind of jolt my nervous system a little bit. So you might be in either one of those camps where you're kind of feeling that nudge, like maybe it's a quiet nudge, maybe you're questioning, like maybe I've outgrown this, maybe this isn't healthy for me. What would it be like? What might improve? They're all this sort of like, the rumblings, we'll call it. And then there's that phase where, like, you have already kind of decided within yourself, like, okay, I need to move on from this part of my life where substances are what I rely on to cope, to get through the day, to always have fun, to look forward to. Like, you've just made it your total habit, right? And you're like, I need to be done with that. You know it. It's a full body instruction. But then when you continue the behavior due to many factors, due to wanting that quick fix, due to habits that are now ingrained, to the fear of the unknown of stopping. When you continue with that action, you get a very deep internal unsettling feeling because you know it's so misaligned. It's not maybe so much shame. Maybe if you have a background of feeling shame from others, you were shamed as a child or throughout your life, made to feel guilty as a form of manipulation from others, you might have this overshadowing shadowing effect of like shaming and guilting yourself. That might be your tone. I kind of had some of that. But it's not so much that I'm talking about. It's this full body knowing of like, what am I doing here? Like, I know this is not where I wanna be anymore, and that creates a rift. It creates a major rift and causes anxiety every time that you keep perpetuating your habits. So before you know better, before your kind of full body instruction is kicked in, your anxiety is not really increasing due to using your substances of choice. They're still working for you. They're still doing it. But you have, for whatever reason, this moment that you migrate into the full body experience where you're like, okay, that's not okay anymore. This is not the standard I'm setting anymore. That's when the anxiety kicks in every time you perpetuate that use, right? You're going to start feeling the edge. But the funny thing is, you can't really go back. And we can trick ourselves because we do backslide. You're like, "Oh, I've gone back. I've gone back a lot. A lot. For years, I went back." I get that. I did. But you don't actually. You go back in your habits and patterns and your behaviors to the familiar. But there is that deep knowing now that cannot leave you. that makes it feel so much worse and heightens your anxiety when you continue to use your substances of choice doesn't go away, it actually gets worse. So, although you may backslide with your actions, inside you're just ramping up the anxiety, which cause you to want to cope with your coping mechanism of choice that you've known and grown to love. And it just perpetuates this whole cycle. Like I said, the dog chasing its tail. So, why do we get all stressed out over this? Like, why do we even care? You're like, "Yeah, if I use enough, I really won't care. I'll be, pretty numb." But the thing behind it is that on some level, we know that we're betraying ourselves. We know that we have inwardly set a new standard for ourselves. And every time we go beyond that boundary, it's like a self-betrayal. And it stings. We don't like when other people betray us. We certainly don't like when we betray ourselves. Now, we do that much more. We'll tolerate that a whole lot more than other people usually. But we don't like it and it's not natural. And it really creates stress inside of us. So, a funny little mechanism we like to use to quiet that down and calm the anxiety is the not yet. We, like, massage it and go, "Okay," we, like, pet the little voice in the inner body knowing and go, "I see you. I hear you. I get it. I even agree, but not yet. Not yet. Wait until after this next, holiday or this next function or celebration or this next really stressful moment of my life. After that, then we'll do it." And so you keep yourself in this constant procrastination, which is perpetual stress. Because, like I said, no matter what, once you've had that full body instruction, every time you go back to that habit or pattern with your substance, you're going to feel that stress. Even when you tell yourself that, oh, it's okay, in the future, we're quitting. You're still going to feel it. You're still stressing yourself out even more. So, let's talk about discomfort versus misalignment and how that really shows up for us. Yes, we have anxiety and discomfort around continuing to do something that we're not aligned with. But let's talk about what alignment feels like and does for us. When we're aligned, not misaligned, but when we're actually in alignment, we are able to show up transparent, honest, fully as ourselves. There is no more filtering. It is like this full body experience and expression of yourself gets to just come out. When you are battling misalignment, you are fractured. You're never quite present and there. You're never fully able to experience and put yourself and shine yourself forth because there's a part of you that feels this splice, this like being broken almost, battling something. There's this kind of rift going on within you, a crack. And that really bleeds into everything you do. You just don't feel right. So, discomfort is one thing. Misalignment causes much more than discomfort ever does. It actually just kind of rifts everything that you do. You're never able to fully show up with self authority and like true embodiment. And that is something that we don't really wrestle with or try and acknowledge because we're procrastinating. But that's something I want you to consider, that when you do get into alignment, everything kind of clicks into place and your power, your energy, everything is enhanced so much greater. So much that the reasons that you thought you had to cope in the beginning sort of dissipate and disappear. And now you don't need to, not just because you stopped doing something that was not in alignment with you anymore, not good for you anymore, but because of the actual ricochet effect of being in alignment. I totally remember at the moment where it was like, Eureka, I'm causing I'm causing myself to totally obsess and stress and guilt and shame and feel fractured. And it's causing me to want to use more substances. And then the use of that is causing me to perpetuate and heighten my anxiety around my use of substances. So the very thing I was just trying to use to kind of numb out and feel good throughout the day in general has now become the catalyst for so much more stress than I was even trying to like quelch in the first place. And it was kind of like a moment where I was just like, duh, like, what am I doing here? This now has become my problem. Before I was just trying to deal with like daily stress and anxiety. Now I've got addiction to handle too. that's not fun. That's not helping me. And so this is that moment I had where I was like, holy shit, what am I actually doing here? So I really want you just consider for yourself that honesty is really where the relief starts to begin. Not with sobriety, it's when you can get really honest with yourself and like look at your behavior and what is really helping you and what is really hurting you. And there's varying levels of degree to all of that, and it's very individual for each of us. So I want you to self reflect and just ask yourself, like, is this perpetuating habit of mine helping anything? Or have I now moved into the zone of this is completely destroying so many facets of my life and not even helping the very thing I started using it for in the first place? That's when you need to just start to reassess. And that makes moving into your sober lifestyle so much easier, I will say. The fear gets taken out because it's like logic can then come into play, and you're like, this doesn't even make sense anymore. And then what you really just have to deal with after all of that is how do I cope without relying on substances? Because it can be done. I have many resources to help you with that. And there are an infinite number of them out on the internet world because there is a whole wellness industry built around regulating yourself, helping yourself, grounding, all of this. So I want you to know it's doable. But first you need to start to kind of see the irony of all of it and be really honest with yourself. Start there. And then when that kind of gets, put into perspective, then you can move into the curiousness of how you can begin to just become really regulated with other tools and resources that are much healthier, much more sustainable, and will really keep you balanced if you use them just as much as you were using something else. You're just replacing it with a different method or technique, okay? So let's take the fear out of moving into the sober lifestyle. Let's take the craziness of what we're doing and shine a big old fat light on it and get real honest with ourselves. And remember, you don't have to decide anything today. I just really want to give you some food for thought, give you some perspective, maybe give you a chuckle. And if you're kind of still in that deciding phase, I really, really encourage you to take advantage of my free online workshop called Enough is Enough, where you just sort of work through all of those mental warfares and fears and nervous system things that keep us stuck in that same cycle and how you can really mitigate them. So there's a workbook that comes along with it. It's a great resource if you're just like, yeah, I'm thinking I need to think on this more. So grab that. That will be in the show notes or the description. And I'll see you next time, my friends.